We brought in the expert on that topic, Ted Egan. You're the chief economist for the city and county of San Francisco. Let's start with the numbers here because they don't look good. Projected budget deficit for San Francisco next year of $290 million, high vacancy rate for the business and commercial real estate sector. How does the city recover from something like this?
Well, the city, you're right. The city's been hit very hard by the remote work phenomenon that you were just discussing, because we do have so much of our economy reliant on office activities, and particularly tech. And tech has been the industry that's adopted remote work more than anyone else. The office market, I think, is in for an adjustment. We haven't necessarily seen office rents come down, but if they do come down significantly as they have in past downturns, we may see some demand, induced by lower rents. We also may see on the margins some of those office buildings turn into other things. There's an interest in doing biotech, which has been rapidly growing in the city the past few years, perhaps housing in a few cases, or in some other potential uses for those buildings.
So maybe there's a bit of delay for things settling down in that the laws of supply and demand haven't really kicked in yet to mitigate that high vacancy rate. Commercial rents are still high, and maybe they need to come to the realization that they need to adjust their pricing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the law of supply and demand still applies, but it's working really slowly. It's been about 3 years of rising vacancy and relatively low declines in office rents, but I do expect that will happen in the next couple of years.
The San Francisco Chronicle had an op-ed piece calling this kind of the doom loop that urban centers like San Francisco can find themselves in. The vicious cycle of the people not working in the city, that leading to less business, less tax revenue, more cuts, more people leaving. Is that the situation that the city is going to be in? Is that hyperbole, or is this a real concern?
I think it's hyperbole to say it's happening now, but it isn't hyperbole to say that the city is suffering, from a negative shock. I mean, again, 80% of our economy is office activities, and the office companies, or companies who use those offices, are saying we don't need them as much as we did. So obviously that's going to affect every piece of the city's economy. Transit, the city's finances, small businesses downtown, the housing market. Whether you go into the so-called doom loop does that shock make things worse, or does the city simply adapt? I mean, we were just talking about a situation in which rents adjust, new tenants are found, people move back to the city, new companies bring new workers back in downtown, and eventually the transit ridership and some of the other numbers recover. I think that's the more likely scenario, but there are a number of things that could go wrong that could take us into something more like a doom loop.
What are things that the city needs to do now, aside from waiting for those commercial rents to come down?
Well, the city, I think, really has to worry about 4 things. It needs to make sure that downtown San Francisco, where most of the offices are, is an attractive and safe place for people to be. People have a choice about whether to go into work more than they did in the past. And so, we have to make San Francisco the kind of place that people want to be rather than kind of have to be.
So maybe dealing immediately with some of the security concerns.
Yeah, I think that's right. Second issue is taxes. The city has raised taxes a lot in the last few years, and while there isn't sign that the taxes are the thing pushing businesses out of town, you referred to the budget challenges that the city is having. If we just respond to those challenges by just raising taxes again, we could get into a loop where we're chasing businesses away because of high taxes. We don't want that. We also have to worry a lot about transit. We need to have BART and Muni running downtown at full capacity. Otherwise, there's no way to get, office workers into those buildings. So it's things like that. They're not impossible, but there are a number of decisions we've got to do correctly in the next few years.
So we know that mass transit like BART and Muni, some of the lobbying groups for them are planning to go to Sacramento and ask the state for some support so that they don't collapse and they're able to provide services. Is that something that the city should support? It's beneficial for you guys as well.
It certainly is beneficial for the city, and I think it makes a lot of sense because at least for the next, few years, it's hard to see where the demand is going to come from. But in the out years, again, through the adjustment that we're talking about, I think it's very likely to see that we'll see the demand for transit come back, but we need the operators to continue to be there, of course.
Real quickly before we have to go, how do you envision downtown in San Francisco looking 5-10 years from now? Will it be like it was before the pandemic, or be something totally different?
I don't think it'll be totally different, but I hope that it's more economically diverse than it was before. If tech industry doesn't need as much office, then that creates an opportunity for the businesses and industries that have been priced out of the city for the past 10 or 20 years to come back in. There's tremendous value for companies being in downtown San Francisco. It's the best location to access talent that lives all over the Bay Area, and we have generations of investments in transit that support that. And so I hope that other industries can recognize that value in the years to come.
All right, I'm sure we will be studying and talking about this issue and how the pandemic changed the work and the way we live in cities for years to come. Ted Egan, Chief Economist with City and County of San Francisco, thanks for being with us.